Dear first grade students at the Faculty of Commerce at Banha University in Banha campus and Abur campus, welcome to the recorded lecture for the module entitled Economics of Natural Resources and Environment. As you know, recorded lectures are to be used in conjunction with your face-to-face interactive lectures in our hybrid educational system. Moreover, the recorded lecture is to be used in conjunction with your course textbooks. Sources of the current presentation are Chapter 2 of Titanberg and Lewis 2018, Chapters 1 and 2 of Berman et al. 2011, in addition to Chapters 1 and 2 of Parkin 2012. The current presentation aims to provide students with the foundations and key concepts relating to economics of natural resources and environment. I take into my consideration that you have not completed any introductory course in economics. Thus, I'll use the simplest words and examples as possible. Moreover, I'll do my best to speak slowly to enable you to easily catch what I am saying. Points to be covered in the current presentation include the relationship between economics and the environment, the concept of natural resources and its classification. In addition, the concepts of irreversibility and sustainability will be introduced. Finally, the lecture discusses the human-environment relationship. By the end of the current lecture, you should be knowledgeable of many concepts that include resources depletion, sustainability, and depletion rate. What's more, you will be able to differentiate between different categories of natural resources. In addition, you will be familiar with the interdependence between the economy and the environment. We begin with covering the first point of our lecture, that is, the relationship between economics and environment. Remember that economics is concerned with studying scarcity. In economics, we define scarcity in terms of the relationship between supply and demand. Without demand, there can be no scarcity. However, as demand rises in relation to supply, or supply decreases in relation to demand, scarcity rises. This is clearly happening to natural resources. Thus, we could say that economics is about the allocation of scarce resources among competing uses. Simply, the environment includes all flora and fauna, aquatic ecosystems, energy and material resources, and the atmosphere. Economics and the environment are interdependent, given that economics focuses on satisfying human wants and needs, considering limited environmental and natural resources. Moreover, the future environmental challenge depends largely on the behavior of humans acting individually or collectively. Human behavior can also deepen environmental problems through positive feedback loops, as we discussed in the previous lecture. Feedback loops are self-reinforcing. Natural resources include all the original resources of the earth that are utilized by people and the range of natural services provided by these resources that support life and economic activity. Thus, natural resources include industrial, raw material, and renewable resources such as fisheries, in addition to other environmental common property resources such as clean fresh water. This definition emphasizes the natural environment is inherently multifunctional, as we will explain later during the current lecture. Natural resources can be classified in various ways. A useful first cut is to distinguish between stock resources and flow resources. We could use the attached figure to recognize the classification of natural resources according to this criterion. In addition, within the stock resources category, there is an important distinction between renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Moreover, non-renewable resources in turn could be classified into energy resources and mineral resources. Let's briefly discuss these categories in the next slides. The difference between stock resources and flow resources lies in whether the level of current use affects future availability. Regarding stock resources, they have the characteristic that today's use has implications for tomorrow's availability. In other words, the level of current use of stock resources does affect future availability. On the other hand, today's use of flow resources has no implications for tomorrow's availability. Thus, there is no link between current use of flow resources and their future availability. Examples of flow resources include solar radiation and the power of the wind. Using more solar radiation today does not itself have any implications for the availability of solar radiation tomorrow. Examples of stock resources include plant and animal populations. Earlier in the current lecture, I have just mentioned that within the stock resources category, we could distinguish between renewable and non-renewable resources. Regarding renewable resources, they have the potential to grow by natural reproduction. Examples of renewable resources are biotic, plant, and animal populations. Non-renewable resources have no natural reproduction except on geological timescales. Non-renewable resources are sometimes referred to as exhaustible or depletable resources. Depletion means the decrease of the value of the stock of natural assets due to economic activity. For example, due to burning fossil fuels for industrialization purpose. This is because eventually the resource stock must be exhausted. However, this is not actually a useful terminology because even renewable resources are exhaustible if they harvested for too long at a rate exceeding their regeneration capacities. Recall that we divide non-renewable resources into mineral resources and energy resources. Well, why we distinguish between both? To understand why we make a distinction between them, let me introduce two new concepts. These two new concepts are irreversibility and sustainability. So, what is meant by the concept of irreversibility? Well, if a decision is undertaken and it is not possible to reverse its effects, we call it an irreversible decision. Regarding sustainability, it could be defined as the notation whether a pattern of resource use can be continued indefinitely. Thus, for non-renewable resources, sustainability means that the depletion of the non-renewable resource should require comparable development of renewable substitutes for that resource. In the previous slide, I mentioned that the depletion of the non-renewable resources should require comparable development of renewable substitutes for that resource. So I will talk about the concept of substitute. In other words, I'll talk about the substitutability. There are two main dimensions to substitutability issues. The first dimension is the extent to which one natural resource can be replaced by another. For example, to what extent can solar power substitute for the fossil fuels on a large scale? This is an important issue given that burning fossil fuel involves the depletion of non-renewable resources, and at the same time it is a source of some major environmental pollution problems, such as the so-called greenhouse effect, which contributes to the global climate change. The second dimension is the degree to which an environmental resource can be replaced by other inputs, especially the human-made capital resulting from saving and investment. This issue is of particular importance, taking into account long-run economy-environment interactions and the problem of sustainability. Substitutability and irreversibility are important issues which are linked to policy related to the natural environment. Let's consider the following two cases. In the first case, the depletion of a resource stock is irreversible. By depletion, we mean that the consumption of a resource is faster than it can be replenished. Moreover, there is no close substitute for the services that the resource stock provides. In such a case, the rate at which the resource is depleted has major implications for sustainability. In other words, concerns and cautions should be paid to the depletion rate. By depletion rate, we mean the reduction in resource amount within a specific time. In the second case, the depletion of a resource stock is not irreversible. Moreover, a close substitute for such a resource exists. Thus, there is less cause for concern about the rate at which the resource is consumed. Regarding the non-renewable resources, they are classified into two subcategories: mineral resources and fossil fuel resources. We can distinguish between them as follows. Fossil fuel burning is an irreversible process. In other words, there is no way to even partially recover them after burning. Hence, coal, oil, and natural gas used to generate heat cannot be recycled. Moreover, fossil fuel burning is a major source of carbon dioxide emissions. You already know that carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas contributing to the global warming. With regard to mineral resources such as copper, they are used as inputs to production. They can be recycled. Therefore, at a given use rate, there exists the possibility of delaying the date of exhaustion of a given initial stock. Now, let's examine the relationship between the environment and human actions as manifested through the economic system. We start by explaining the environment as an asset. So, what is meant by an asset? Well, an asset could be defined as an entity that has value and forms part of the wealth of the owner. In economics, the environment is considered as a composite asset that provides a variety of services directly and indirectly. The environment provides the economy with raw materials, which are transformed into consumer products by the production process. In addition, the environment provides the economy with energy, such as fuels. Ultimately, these raw materials and energy return to the environment as waste products, as we will see in Figure 2.1 later during the current lecture. The environment also provides goods and services directly to consumers. The air we breathe and the protection we receive from shelter and clothing. One significant subclass of these ecosystem goods and services incorporates the benefits obtained directly from ecosystems, including biodiversity, water, and amenities for which no substitute exists. Amenities include the beauty, for example, of a sunset. Moreover, the environment is a very special asset. It provides the life support systems that sustain our existence. As with other assets, we wish to enhance or at least prevent undue depreciation of this asset. Now let's briefly explain what's meant by an economic system. An economic system consists of firms and households who interact in markets, in addition to governments. I know that you have not been introduced to the circular flows through markets in the course of Principles of Economics. For this reason, I'll give you a brief description of the components of the economic system in the following slides. A firm is an economic unit that hires factors of production and organizes those factors in order to produce and sell goods and services. Examples of firms are gas stations, water stations, and General Motors. Factors of production are grouped into 4 categories: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Land is the gifts of nature that we use to produce goods and services. In economics, land is what in everyday language we call natural resources. Labor could be defined as the work time and work effort that people devote in order to produce goods and services. Labor includes the physical and mental efforts of all the people who work on farms, construction sites, in factories, shops, and offices. Physical capital includes the tools, instruments, machines, buildings, and other constructions that firms use to produce goods and services. Regarding the entrepreneurship, it could be defined as the human resource that organizes other factors of production. Entrepreneurs come up with new ideas about what and how to produce. They make business decisions. They bear the risks that arise from these decisions. Households are consumers for whom firms produce goods and services to satisfy their needs. Households are the owners of the factors of production. Thus, households sell or rent these factors of production to firms. Markets. You know that a market is any arrangement that enables buyers and sellers to get information and do business with each other. An example is the market in which oil is bought and sold. That is the world oil market. It is worth mentioning that markets have evolved because they facilitate trade. The world oil market is not a place. It is the network of oil producers, oil users, wholesalers, etc., who buy and sell oil. In the world oil market, decision makers do not meet physically, but they make deals by telephone, fax, and direct-to-computer link. Other markets, such as fresh fish market in your neighborhood, have physical places where buyers and sellers meet to conduct transactions. Households and firms interact in two markets. The first market is the market of factors of production, whereas the second is the goods market. In the factors market, households are the sellers of the factors of production, whereas firms are the buyers of these factors. On the other hand, households are the buyers in the goods market, while firms sell final goods and services to households. Now let's discuss the role of the governments in the economic system. Governments use taxes and subsidies to influence markets. Taxes increase the prices paid by the buyers and lower the prices received by sellers. So taxes decrease the quantity produced and lead to underproduction. Subsidies could be defined as the payments by the government to producers. Subsidies decrease the prices paid by buyers and increase the prices received by sellers. Thus, subsidies increase the quantity produced and lead to overproduction. Moreover, governments can use emissions standards to control for pollution and thus protect the environment. What is emissions standards? Well, they could be defined as regulations that set the maximum amount of pollutants that may be legally emitted by an industrial facility or product. We could say that governments can use incentives to encourage the use of wind and solar power to replace the burning of fossil fuels that brings climate change. Production and consumption necessitate the interaction between and among firms, households, and governments. Moreover, they necessitate using inputs including natural and environmental resources. However, consumption and production tend to result in various wastes and pollutants, including household wastes, air pollution, water pollutants. For example, in electricity stations, where oil is burned to produce electricity, carbon dioxide is also produced at the same time, which is considered to be an air pollutant. Let's use figure 2.1 to explore the relationship between the economic system and the environment system. The two systems are simultaneously determined. As you see, environment provides the economic system with valuable goods and services. It provides the economic system with inputs such as raw materials and energy sources. The environment acts as a waste sink. In other words, it acts like a sink for pollution products such as carbon dioxide, solid wastes, and water pollution products. But be aware that the environment capability of acting as waste sink is limited and thus more and more wastes aggravate pollution problems. As I have just mentioned earlier during the current lecture, the environment is a direct source of amenity for households. The environment provides a variety of amenities for which no substitute exists. Regarding the economic system, it operates from inside the environment system. It includes firms, households, and governments. The economic system enables us to transform inputs into outputs. For example, it enables us to transform oil into petrol, water into energy, wood into furniture, etc., in order to satisfy human needs. It is worth mentioning that outputs can be recycled. In other words, outputs can be reused as inputs in the production process. You can see here that outputs can be recycling the arrow here from inputs to output, from outputs to inputs. The next slide displays key concepts and terms which have been introduced during the current lecture. Kindly spend enough time in studying these concepts and terms. This is the end of today's recorded lecture. Thank you.